Before Egypt's pyramids reached for the sky, before Mesopotamia carved its first cities into the earth, there was something else, something far older, far stranger, and almost entirely forgotten. Imagine civilizations erased not by time alone, but by history itself. Stone pillars older than the pharaohs, cities buried beneath deserts, and legends that whisper of kingdoms long before kings. What if the story we've been told, that Egypt and Mesopotamia were the first sparks of human greatness, is only half the truth? What if, hidden under layers of sand and silence, lies a chapter of humanity so ancient it rewrites everything we think we know about civilization? This isn't just about lost ruins or broken artifacts. It's about questioning the very timeline of human history. Because when you look deep enough, the evidence doesn't just hint, it screams that something was here long before Egypt, long before Mesopotamia, a world humanity has almost completely forgotten. For centuries, history books have told us a simple story, that civilization began in Mesopotamia, with its first cities and written language, and in Egypt, with its monumental pyramids and mighty pharaohs. These lands, we are told, were humanity's first great leap from scattered tribes into organized societies. But what if this is not the full picture? What if Egypt and Mesopotamia were not the beginning, but merely the survivors? Beneath the earth, beneath the waves, and in the forgotten corners of our planet, archaeologists are uncovering mysteries that refuse to fit the timeline. Sites older than the Great Pyramids, temples built with precision long before written history, and artifacts that suggest advanced knowledge in ages we consider primitive. These discoveries whisper of cultures that thrived, flourished, and then vanished, leaving behind only fragments for us to piece together. This video is not about fantasy or myth. It is about evidence, real, tangible, undeniable clues that suggest an older chapter of humanity. A chapter where civilizations rose and fell long before Egypt and Mesopotamia claimed the stage. A chapter of history that challenges everything we think we know about the dawn of mankind. Challenging the timeline, when we think of the origins of civilization, two names dominate the conversation: Mesopotamia and Egypt. Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization, is celebrated for its invention of writing, laws, and city life. Egypt, with its monumental pyramids and divine kings, is held up as humanity's first true empire of stone. Together, they form the foundation of how we understand the birth of organized society. But the deeper we dig, both literally and figuratively, the more that story begins to crack. Archaeology has revealed places that do not fit the neat timeline we were taught in school. One of the most striking examples is Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. This vast temple complex, buried for thousands of years, dates back to around 9600 BCE, nearly 7,000 years before the pyramids of Giza. Its massive stone pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, were carved and arranged with astonishing precision. Yet this site was built by people who supposedly had no cities, no writing, and only basic tools. And Göbekli Tepe is not alone. The ancient city of Jericho, with its stone towers and walls, predates Egypt by millennia. The site of Mehrgar in Pakistan shows evidence of advanced farming and trade as early as 7000 BCE. These places prove that human beings were organizing themselves into complex societies, long before the official start of civilization. So, why are these sites often treated as exceptions rather than proof? Why do history books still cling to the idea that Egypt and Mesopotamia came first? The answer lies not only in the evidence itself, but in how we choose to interpret it. For decades, scholars framed history as a straight line of progress, from hunter-gatherers to farmers to city builders. Anything that didn't fit was dismissed, ignored, or called a mystery. But today, the evidence is too overwhelming to ignore. The old narrative, that civilization began only 5,000 years ago, no longer holds. Humanity's timeline is deeper, richer, and more mysterious than we ever imagined. The forgotten civilizations older than Egypt and Mesopotamia are not just outliers. They may be the missing first chapters of our story. The mysterious evidence. If we follow the cracks in the old timeline, they lead us to some of the most extraordinary and puzzling evidence ever uncovered. Scattered across the world are sites and artifacts that defy conventional explanation, reminders of a human past that is far older and perhaps far stranger than we allow ourselves to believe. Take the massive megaliths of Baalbek in Lebanon. Among them lies the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, a single block of limestone estimated to weigh more than 1,000 tons. Even with today's technology, moving such a stone would be a near impossible feat. Yet it was quarried and shaped thousands of years ago, by people we are told had only primitive tools, or consider Pumapunku, part of the ancient Tiwanaku site in Bolivia. Here, massive stone blocks are cut with such precision that they fit together like pieces of a puzzle, some with grooves and interlocking shapes that resemble modern machine work. Archaeologists officially date Tiwanaku to around 500 CE, but evidence suggests these foundations may be far older, perhaps stretching back to the end of the last ice age. Even Europe hides mysteries. The megalithic temples of Malta, some more than 5,000 years old, were built with astonishing skill, long before the pyramids rose in Egypt. The carvings and designs show advanced knowledge of engineering and astronomy. Meanwhile, deep inside caves across France and Spain, paintings dating back tens of thousands of years depict not only animals, but abstract symbols, signs that complex thought and communication existed far earlier than we admit. These sites are not isolated accidents of history. They appear on every continent, from the ancient stone circles of Africa to submerged ruins off the coast of Japan. Taken together, they suggest that advanced societies, ones capable of organizing labor, designing architecture, and transmitting culture, were thriving long before the civilizations we credit as the first. And yet, mainstream narratives continue to describe them as mysteries or anomalies. But are they truly anomalies? Or are they pieces of a puzzle we've only just begun to assemble? The more evidence we uncover, the clearer it becomes. Egypt and Mesopotamia were not the starting line, but rather the continuation of a much older, much grander human story. Daily life and culture. When we look beyond the monuments and megaliths, a deeper question emerges. What were the lives of these forgotten peoples really like? Civilizations are not only measured by stone blocks and temples, they are also shaped by how people lived, what they believed, and how they connected with the world around them. Archaeological traces give us glimpses. At Mehrgar, one of the world's earliest known farming communities, evidence shows that people were cultivating wheat and barley more than 9,000 years ago. They domesticated cattle, wove cloth, and crafted jewelry from seashells and precious stones, suggesting trade routes that stretched far beyond their village. This was not a primitive settlement. It was a society with structure, skill, and vision. Meanwhile, at Göbekli Tepe, the carved pillars are decorated with intricate animal figures: lions, snakes, vultures, and wild boars. Some scholars believe these were not simply decorations, but reflections of a spiritual or religious system, perhaps even one of the earliest known organized religions. These carvings hint at a worldview where humans and nature were deeply interconnected, and where rituals bound communities together. In Jericho, one of the oldest continually inhabited cities on Earth, archaeologists discovered a massive stone tower dating back to 8,000 BCE. It was not merely a defense structure. It may have served as a symbol of unity, a way for the community to mark time or align with celestial events. This suggests that even early societies were observing the skies, measuring the seasons, and tying their lives to cosmic patterns. These forgotten cultures were not just survivors. They were innovators. They planted seeds of agriculture, trade, art, and spirituality that later civilizations, from Egypt to Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley, would inherit and expand. In their daily lives, they carried knowledge, rituals, and traditions that remind us that humanity's genius did not suddenly appear with the pharaohs. It was already present, quietly thriving in worlds far older. Theories and controversies. Whenever we step into the realm of civilizations older than Egypt and Mesopotamia, controversy follows closely behind. Mainstream scholars often caution against overinterpreting the evidence, insisting that sites like Göbekli Tepe or Pumapunku are extraordinary but still part of humanity's gradual progress. Yet others argue that the puzzle pieces point to something far greater, perhaps entire civilizations that rose and fell before history began, recording itself. One of the most debated theories links these forgotten cultures to the great global flood myths. From the Epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical story of Noah, nearly every ancient culture preserves a memory of cataclysmic floods. Some researchers believe these stories may reflect real events at the end of the last ice age, when rising seas swallowed coastlines and wiped out low-lying settlements. If advanced societies once thrived there, their ruins would now lie hidden beneath the oceans. Then there are the legends of Atlantis and Lemuria, described as lost continents where knowledge and technology flourished before vanishing in catastrophe. While mainstream archaeology dismisses these as myths, alternative historians argue that the similarities between global legends suggest a kernel of truth. Could these tales be faint echoes of real civilizations destroyed thousands of years ago? Even among scientists, debates rage. Some point to astronomical alignments at ancient sites, suggesting advanced knowledge of the stars long before Egypt's astronomer priests. Others propose that much of what we dismiss as myth may be distorted memories of ancient survivors trying to preserve their past. The controversy lies not in whether older civilizations existed. The evidence increasingly suggests they did, but in how far back we are willing to push the timeline. Are we looking at small farming villages that happened to build monuments? Or are we glimpsing the remnants of a global human story that reaches tens of thousands of years deeper than we ever imagined? Conclusion: history is not a fixed story carved in stone. It is a puzzle, and with every excavation, every discovery, another piece is placed on the table. For centuries, we were told that Mesopotamia and Egypt were humanity's first true civilizations. But the evidence scattered across the globe tells us something different. That long before pharaohs and kings, long before the first written words, there were societies building, believing, and creating in ways we are only beginning to understand. The monuments of Göbekli Tepe, the ancient farms of Mehrgar, the towers of Jericho, and the megaliths of Baalbek, they all whisper the same truth. Our story did not begin where we thought it did. Civilization is older, more complex, and far more mysterious than the textbooks allow. So the question becomes, what else lies hidden? Beneath the deserts, under the oceans, deep in the jungles, how many more forgotten civilizations are waiting to be uncovered? Perhaps we are only scratching the surface of our own past. And perhaps the greatest discovery is still ahead of us, that humanity has risen and fallen many times before, and that we are just one chapter in a book whose first pages remain unread. The forgotten civilizations older than Egypt and Mesopotamia are not just history. They are a reminder that our world is built upon worlds we have barely begun to remember,